There is something a narcissist will never tell you, something they will spend their entire life hiding behind charm, behind rage, behind silence, behind tears that appear only when convenient. And it is this: the narcissist is not afraid of your anger. They are not afraid of your tears. They are not afraid of your threats to leave. They have survived all of that 100 times before. What truly terrifies them, what shakes the very foundation of the dark architecture inside their mind, is the moment you stop reacting, the moment you see them clearly, the moment your eyes stop begging and start observing. Because in that instant, something they have relied on for years collapses. The illusion breaks, and whatever spirit of manipulation, control, and psychological domination has been feeding on you suddenly realizes it is staring at someone it can no longer consume. That is the moment the narcissist begins to behave in very strange, very specific ways. And if you learn to recognize those ways, you will understand something most people never figure out. The narcissist was never powerful. You were. They just made sure you never found out. Before we go deeper, do one thing for yourself. If you have ever been manipulated, gaslit, or emotionally drained by someone who claimed to love you, subscribe to this channel right now. Not for me, for you. Because what comes next is going to change the way you see every narcissist you have ever known. What most people never realize is that narcissists do not operate on love, logic, or even hate. They operate on control. Control is their oxygen. Control is the only thing that silences the unbearable emptiness inside them. And the way they secure that control is by studying you. They study your fears, your hopes, your wounds, your loneliness, your need to be understood. And then they position themselves as the answer to everything you have ever lacked. That is why the relationship felt magical in the beginning. It was not love. It was reconnaissance. They were mapping your soul so they could later use it as a weapon against you. And the moment you begin to heal, the moment you begin to know yourself, that map becomes useless. Their power begins to die. And that is when their behavior begins to shift in ways that feel almost supernatural. Pay close attention because this changes everything. When a narcissist senses that their psychological grip is loosening, they do not respond with reflection. They respond with panic disguised as dominance. They suddenly become colder, or suddenly become sweeter. They withdraw without explanation, or they flood you with attention you did not ask for. They start arguments out of nothing. They bring up old wounds. They accuse you of things you never did. They rewrite history right in front of your face, expecting you to flinch, to doubt yourself, to fold back into the small shape they had carved for you. And when you do not, when you stand still, when your eyes remain calm, something inside them begins to unravel. Because their entire identity depends on your reaction. Without your reaction, they do not exist. This is the part nobody talks about. The narcissist is not a strong person pretending to be weak. The narcissist is a deeply terrified person pretending to be a god. Underneath all the arrogance, the cruelty, the cold detachment, there is a child who never learned how to feel safe inside themselves. That is why they need to dominate. That is why they need to humiliate. That is why they need to be admired, feared, obeyed, and never questioned. And when someone like you, someone who has done the inner work, someone who has begun to value themselves, walks into their life and refuses to bow, the narcissist experiences something close to existential horror. Because for the first time, they are forced to feel the very thing they have spent their entire life running from: their own emptiness, their own smallness, their own shame. And what happens next reveals the truth. The first sign that the narcissist is losing control over you is sudden, irrational rage. Not anger that makes sense, rage that erupts from nowhere, that is wildly disproportionate, that often targets something minor: a tone of voice, a delayed reply, a boundary you set kindly, a moment you did not laugh at their joke. That rage is not about what you did. That rage is about what you did not give them. You did not give them fear. You did not give them submission. You did not give them the emotional supply they were used to extracting from you. So they escalate. Because in their distorted mind, if charm no longer works, then intimidation must. And if intimidation does not work either, then destruction will. The second sign is sudden withdrawal, the silent treatment, the cold shoulder, the disappearance, the empty stare across the room. To an untrained eye, this looks like indifference, but what is actually happening inside them is the opposite of calm. They are punishing you. They are trying to make you feel invisible, abandoned, desperate. They are testing whether the old wound inside you, the wound of not feeling loved, not feeling chosen, not feeling enough, is still strong enough to drag you back to them on your knees. And if you stay grounded, if you do not chase, if you do not break the silence first, you have just done something the narcissist cannot tolerate. You have shown them that their absence does not destroy you. And that is a wound to their ego they will carry for a very long time. But here is where it gets even darker. The third sign is blame shifting that becomes almost theatrical. Suddenly, every problem in the relationship is your fault. Every cruel word came out of their mouth because you provoked it. Every lie they told was your fault because you did not trust them enough. Every act of betrayal happened because you did not love them the right way. This is not an argument. This is a psychological operation. The narcissist is trying to reinstall the original software of guilt, shame, and self-doubt into your mind. Because without that software running in the background, you are unreachable. You are unbreakable. You are free. And freedom in someone they used to control is the one thing they cannot allow to exist in peace. The fourth sign is the smear campaign. When all internal manipulation fails, the narcissist turns outward. They begin to talk about you to friends, to family, to coworkers, sometimes even to your own children. They paint you as crazy, unstable, cold, selfish, ungrateful. They flip the narrative so cleanly that even people who have known you for years begin to look at you with confusion. And here is what most victims never understand. The smear campaign is not an attack on your reputation. It is an attempt to rebuild the cage. Because if they can convince the world that you are the problem, then maybe, just maybe, they can convince you again too. The smear campaign is the desperate roar of a predator who has lost its prey. If this is reaching you, if this is hitting something deep, subscribe to this channel right now, because everything you are about to hear is going to help you take back what was taken. Comment one word below, just one: awake. So I know you are with me, because this next part is where the truth becomes unstoppable. What most people never realize is that emotional independence is the single most threatening force in a narcissist's life. Not money, not status, not even leaving. Emotional independence. The moment you stop needing their approval, their validation, their attention, their permission to feel okay about yourself, you have effectively cut the cord through which they were feeding. And a narcissist without a feeding source is a deeply unstable creature. That is why they become more aggressive, not less, when you begin to heal. Because in their mind, your healing is their starvation. Your peace is their famine. Your self-respect is their exile. They do not want you well. They want you dependent. They want you reactive. The healthier you become, the more dangerous you become to the version of you they built in their mind. Pay close attention because this changes everything. Boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are mirrors. And the narcissist cannot tolerate mirrors. Every time you set a boundary, no matter how gentle, you are forcing them to see themselves. You are forcing them to confront the fact that you have a self, a soul, a center that exists outside of them and is not theirs to command. That is unbearable for them. Because in their internal world, you do not exist as a separate person. You exist as a function of supply, of admiration, of emotional regulation. And when that function suddenly says no, when that function starts having a life of its own, the narcissist feels something close to betrayal of cosmic proportions. That is why they react to boundaries the way most people react to violence. Because to them, a boundary is violence. Your no is the destruction of their entire universe. This is the part nobody talks about. Underneath every narcissistic behavior, underneath every insult, every silent treatment, every guilt trip, every lie, every smear, every rage, there is one single emotion: fear. The narcissist is afraid, always, constantly. Underneath the mask, they live in a state of perpetual psychological dread. Dread of being exposed, dread of being seen, dread of being ordinary, dread of being abandoned, dread of realizing that the self they have constructed is hollow, and the only way they know how to manage that dread is to project it outward, to make someone else carry it for them. That someone, for years, was you. And the reason your healing terrifies them so much is because the moment you set down the fear they gave you, they have no choice but to feel it themselves. And they would rather destroy you than feel it. And what happens next reveals the truth. Once you understand this, you start to see every behavior of the narcissist differently. The rage is not strength, it is panic. The silence is not power, it is punishment born from fear. The blame shifting is not confidence. It is a desperate attempt to keep the mask glued to their face. The smear campaign is not influence. It is the sound of someone losing their grip. Suddenly, the giant you were afraid of starts to look like exactly what they always were: a frightened person screaming inside a costume. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. And once you cannot unsee it, you cannot be controlled by it. But here is where it gets even darker. The narcissist's deepest fear is not you leaving. It is you becoming someone they can no longer recognize. Because the version of you they pretended to love was the version that needed them. The version that doubted itself. The version that apologized too quickly. The version that gave too much, forgave